happy that we can invite Dr. Clapper. He's a physician in a nutrition-based medicine center in Santa Rosa. He's going to talk to us on healing yourself, healing the world. Let's welcome him.
Thank you. And thank you for the invitation to come down here and join you. It's an honor. And it's becoming more and more important to speak to people of your age for many reasons, which we'll touch upon in my talk here. When I was going to medical school, and I looked at, opened up Grant's Atlas of Anatomy to see how the body worked, and I was just fascinated by the muscles in the forearm. It was so brilliantly devised. The muscles are laid out along the long bones. They end in these cords called tendons, and the tendons plug into the bone. And the muscle here pulls the tendon, and the tendon pulls the bone. Wonderful. But the muscles down here and the end of the fingers up here, the tendon would have a tendency just to bowstring right across the palm. Well, nature's a good engineer. So to keep that bowstring from happening, she put some tie-down ligaments, the transverse carpal ligament, across the base of the wrist here to keep the tendon from bowstringing across the palm. Wonderful. But because there's a lot of motion there, as those tendons slid back and forth underneath the ligament, the tie-down ligament again and again and again, what would happen is it start generating heat. And a lot of friction would build up. So nature's such a class engineer, she took care of that. Where the tendons slide underneath the ligament, this is the back of the hand, same arrangement on the back of the hand. Here's the extensor retinaculum back here that's holding down the extensor tendons on the back of your hand. And to avoid friction from building up here, nature envelops the tendons with a lubricating sheath that puts out a really fine lubricating fluid like fine machine oil. And these are gossamer thin membranes that with their fine machine oil lubricant slide back and forth and allow the tendons to slide back and forth underneath the tie-down ligament without any friction. And when I saw that first night in med school, I put down my book and I applauded. I said, man, that is just some great engineering. Same is true with our digestive system. It's really, we'll talk about a wonder of the universe. Our digestive system lets us turn the food that you and I eat into you and me. That's a pretty good piece of alchemy. When a woman is pregnant, all the food that she eats during that 9 months when that baby's growing inside of her, her digestive system turns into that. That's a pretty good piece of alchemy. And that creation can grow up and do something equally wonderful, like fall in love. Any system that lets us do things like that is certainly worth a little bit of attention. So we're going to spend a little time on it. The digestive system is one of my favorite systems, starting up in the mouth and going down the esophagus into the stomach and the pancreas and your liver. Amazing chemists in the body, the small intestine, which we'll talk about, the large intestine. It's a wonderful, wonderful system. You ought to know how it works. I did a video that takes you on a journey through that, through the entire system, top to bottom. It's called Digestion Made Easy. I got a few copies here, but you can get it off my website if you'd like. That's not where this lecture is going, but if you want to learn more about your digestive system, it's available on DVD if you'd like it. I'm going to bypass all the upper machinery here, your stomach and your esophagus and your pancreas and your liver. They're wonderful organs. You should learn about them and enjoy them. I'm going to take us right down into the small intestine. That's really the star of the digestive show. It's a muscular tube, 26 feet long. And it's the organ through which we absorb the nutrients from our food into our bloodstream. How does it do that? If you look on the inner wall of the small intestine, you'll see there's zillions and zillions of little finger-like projections sticking up. These are called the intestinal villi. Here's what they look like under a scanning electron microscope. They're little fingers that stick up, and the purpose of them is to increase the surface area for absorption of nutrients. Instead of just a flat sheet, there's a lot more surface area with all these little projections sticking up. And they do a great job increasing the surface area. If you took your intestine, sliced it open, and flattened down all these villi till it was on one flat plane, the total area would cover the area a half of an NFL football field. That is the absorptive area each of us has in our intestinal tracts. The villi are organs of absorption, of digestion as well as absorption. Down at the base of the villi, there are little glands that pour out into the intestine very powerful enzymes. Amylase enzymes to digest starches, lipase enzyme to digest fats, protease enzymes to digest protein. The intestine is 26 feet of churning muscular tube with membrane secreting, with enzyme secreting membranes that just weep cascades of enzymes off the wall of the intestine, mixes in with the food, and for 26 feet your food gets mixed up with these very powerful digestive enzymes. So by the time food gets to the end of the of the small intestine, most of the nutrients have been digested and absorbed. Amazing organ. Talk more about all that on the DVD. But the main purpose of the villi is to absorb the nutrients. Once the proteins are broken down into their individual amino acid building blocks, and once starches are broken down to their individual sugars, which is what starches are, they get absorbed into the villi, into the veins here. So most nutrients are absorbed into the veins. A couple of pithy sayings from today's lecture. Your body is never not looking. You can't tell your body, look over here, and have a cheeseburger there. Who's that? Yeah. Like nothing happened. It's especially true when you consume any food. Within minutes of eating anything, molecules of that food is pouring through every cell in your body, bathing every single cell in your tissues. If you have a meal like this, your body knows just what to do with it. Breaks it down into the sugars and fats and oils. And fats are very effectively absorbed from your intestine. And you eat a meal that has a lot of fat in it, and you will see the results. Here's a meal like we just had. It's basically steamed vegetables, a little bit of tofu here. It's like the meal we just had. If any of you were to have some blood drawn right now, or in the next hour or two, this is what would happen. The red clot would go to the bottom, and the liquid part of the blood, the serum, would rise up to the top, and you can see the serum is nice and clear yellow. You can see right through normal serum. This is how your blood's supposed to look after you eat a meal. This is how all your blood looks now. But you have a burger, fries, and a shake. All the saturated fat in the beef, the butter fat in the cheese, the egg yolk fat in the mayonnaise, the vegetable oil in the fries, the butter fat in the ice cream, in the milkshake. All that fat oozes out into your bloodstream, and for the next 5 hours, your blood looks like this. This is fat in the blood. It's called lipemia. And this is all that fat that you just ate goes out into your blood. Your blood stays this way for about 5 hours so your liver can clear it out of there. Well, this is the problem. And this includes olive oil. These refined oils do the same thing. So what? Well, the so what's here. Like most Americans, most of the people on this campus, I imagine, start out with an Egg McMuffin or bacon and eggs or something oily, greasy in the morning, and they send a wave of fat through their blood, and their blood stays fatty about 5 hours, so their liver can clear it out of there just about noontime, just in time to head out to Golden Arches and send another wave of fat through the bloodstream. And all afternoon, your blood runs thick with fat, layers out in your arteries, layers out in your fat stores. It takes about 5 hours to clear it out of there, just in time to stop at the Colonel on the way home and send another wave of fat through the bloodstream. It takes till about 10 o'clock at night for your liver to clear that out of your blood, just in time to head back to the bedroom, but you make a little stop on the way back, and you send another little wave of fat through your bloodstream as you go to bed. And the reality is that most Americans are keeping their blood fatty all day. Stuff never clears out of the bloodstream. And I see the results in my office every day. You can see it walking down the street here. You see what's happening to the great American waistline as a result of doing this. This is no way a natural diet. I don't care what the cavemen ate. They didn't do this to their bloodstream hour after hour. There are consequences to this. This is the kind of food we now eat. And I have to deal with the problems, and so will you from the patient's point of view. When your blood is running thick with fat, it deposits everywhere in the body, including your fat stores. And people who are having trouble struggling with their weight got to get serious about what they're doing to their bloodstream hour after hour and not get frustrated when the reality is sitting right in front of them. This creates that, which creates that. When your blood's running thick with fat, you got a big fat sponge. You're glad to take that fat out of your blood and store it for a rainy day. And it stores in two places. Here's a plastic model of the abdomen cut in half. Two kinds of fats. The fat under the skin, active, makes hormones, makes female hormones, make estrogens. Not a good thing. We'll talk about why that's not a problem. That's not a good thing. Gives women breast lumps, fibroids, gives guys all sorts of curves they don't want. But the worst fat is on the ones that coats the intestines, on the intra-abdominal, the inside fat. Is like having an alien being in your body. And I'm not joking, because this stuff is metabolically alive. It puts out hormones called inflammatory cytokines that stir up inflammation all over your body, in your artery walls, on your insulin receptors, in your joints. People who have extra body fat are in a state of inflammation. And pick a disease. But these all erupt from month after month, year after year of chronic inflammation from carrying that around. When you eat a fast food meal, you send a wave of fat. There's a 2-hour lecture just getting through this slide about what all the fat and the salt and the sugars and there's a lot of toxins, especially when you cook meat. I won't go into it, but trimethylamine oxide drives cholesterol into your artery walls. Endotoxin is a nasty toxin that causes poisoning throughout the body. Nu5GC, this is an inflammatory substance that winds up in cancers and in joint inflammations. Of course, you cook the meat, so there's oxidized muscle, there's all the pesticides the animal ate, the herbicides, the heavy metals. These are all concentrated in the animal's flesh. The hormones they were given, the antibiotics, and all the flavorings and colorings, all of that sweeps through your bloodstream with every fast food meal. Well, there's a problem with that. What's the problem? I'll use an analogy from automotives. Okay? Let's say you're driving along and your gas gauge reads you're empty. You pull into the gas station to fill up. But as you pull in, you notice that the diesel fuel is 6 cents a gallon cheaper than the high-octane gas. So you pull up to the diesel pump and you fill your car's engine up with diesel fuel. Diesel fuel is kerosene. It is oily. It does not burn cleanly. You put kerosene into your gasoline-burning engine, you turn on the key, coughs and sputters and black smoke comes out the back. You put it in a gear, it lurches forward 10 yards and comes to a stop. You get out, and you see black smoke coming out of the exhaust pipe and from under the hood. You lift up the hood, and you come to the obvious conclusion that my car's developed a disease. Who can fix my car's disease? You get towed back to the garage. The mechanic says, what are you using for fuel? Well, kerosene, it was cheaper. He says, I have an idea. Try gasoline. And they drain the kerosene out of your tank, clean off the spark plugs, and they fill it up with high-test octane gasoline. You turn the engine on, vroom, and it's so great. Whoa, that mechanic's so smart, cured my car's disease. The car did not have a disease. That engine malfunctioned precisely, predictably, as will malfunction by putting too oily a fuel through a fuel line not designed to run it. You get where I'm going with this? The American diet is too oily a fuel for our engines, and it clogs up our fuel lines, our arteries. It fouls our spark plugs, our insulin receptors, and we develop all sorts of diseases. I spend most of my time, as do all my colleagues, surgeons, pediatricians, dermatologists, pick a specialty. All of us deal with a rather small group of grim diseases: obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, inflammation of the bowel and the joints, a bunch of autoimmune diseases. They're all from what our patients are eating. They're all from what you're eating. You're going to be in my office with these diseases from the standard American diet. These are not good diseases. Why am I here? I'm a messenger from your future. I've been practicing medicine 40 years, and I have seen where this curve goes. And I wish someone had appeared when I was your age and told me what I'm about to tell you, especially from a medical point of view. I wish I had a professor of medicine would tell me what I'm going to tell you. Wish I had known from my own diet. The American diet has changed. When I graduated in '72, I was ready to treat all sorts of cases of smallpox and leprosy and typhoid fever. You know, in 40 years, you know how many cases of leprosy I've seen? 0. Typhoid, 0, thank God. No, because nobody told me about it, but in the 40 years, they decided to change the American diet right under my nose. Instead of a whole food, plant-based diet, it's turned into the fast food catastrophe we now have. Here are the figures for you folks, like numbers. Here's our meat consumption from 1900. Well, steadily upward, now we're up at 91.2 kilograms. That's almost 200 pounds of beef a year, animal flesh a year. Here's our cheese consumption. 30 pounds a year. It's about a quarter pound a day. Here's all the fats and oils that we're now adding to all the fried foods that we eat. Here's grains. They were marching steadily downward, rice and wheat, et cetera, until the fast food industry appeared in the 1980s, and whoop, now all that white bread, all that flour now is getting made into hamburger buns, et cetera. Here's our sugar consumption with carbonated soft drinks. No surprise there. So what? Who cares? Why should you care? Well, I don't think it's divulging any secrets. Americans are getting fatter. Kids are getting fatter, adults are getting fatter, everybody's getting fatter. The nurses in the hospitals, they are not good examples of good health. I see I'm offending some people. Some people say, I know where he's going with this, and I don't want to listen to this. Okay. And here's what I don't want you to look like in 15 years, and too many of you are going to. This is where the standard American diet takes you. This is where the burgers and the pizzas take you. This guy 15 years ago looked a whole lot different. Now he's obese, got high blood pressure, his insulin doesn't work, he's got diabetes, high cholesterol. Our standard American diet, SAD, is sad. It is. It's creating a nation of overweight, chronically ill people with ever shorter lifespans and ever higher medical costs, despite Obamacare. So what? Why do you care? First of all, you don't want any of these diseases. Any one of them will put a bend in your life. You get rheumatoid arthritis, you get ulcerative colitis. That's the end of your social life. Ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease will totally dominate your life. You get a bloody diarrhea every 20 minutes. You can't go to a movie. You can't get on an airplane. And this is from inflaming your gut lining so bad from all the processed foods people eat. You get rheumatoid arthritis in your joints at a young age. It hurts to stand up and walk across the room to brush your teeth. You don't want any of these diseases. You don't want your mom and dad to have them. You don't want your boss to have them. You don't want your colleagues on your work team to be calling in all the time because their diabetes is out of control or because their colitis is so bad they can't come to work. And the economics of this is going to affect everything you do. General Motors says healthcare costs add between $1,500 and $2,000 to the sticker price of every car that comes down that assembly line for the medical costs of the people putting those bolts in. Running the robots putting the bolts in now. Okay? Everything you buy, there's the health tax of the people, there's a hidden tax of the people who made that product. You're paying for that. Every municipal law, every tax that you vote for locally, you're paying for the emergency room care of people who don't have insurance that show up in the ER. It's going to affect everything you do. Why should young people care? Oh, there's diseases that affect young people right in this room. I saw a couple of good cases of acne. Boy, I talk about curbing your social life. Skin like that. When I went to school, oh, diet has nothing to do with it. Oh, yeah? I didn't believe it then. We sure don't believe it now. It most certainly has something to do with it. It's now clear, showing up in the medical journals, that there are basically the proteins in cow's milk stimulate the oil glands to put out a really acidic, thick oil secretion in the glands that plug up and set off the acne. Same thing with the leucine amino acids in meats and dairy products. With the cat's out of the bag regarding dairy products and cow's milk. And most certainly has a big effect. Which gets us around to this creature. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these before, but this is a sacred cow. Anybody know what a sacred cow is? What's a sacred cow? A sacred cow is a belief that you hold in your head that is you are so sure that it's right, that nothing can possibly dislodge it from you, and heaven forbid anybody tries. That's a sacred cow in your head. Okay. Well, I grew up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin. I've been milking cows since I was 8. And I got another viewing of some of these cows. When you take a close look at them, most of them are pretty old and tattered, the truth of it is. And most of them you are retaining in your head because somebody is making money off of keeping that thought in your head, and I will talk to you about who's doing it and why. Iconoclast. Who knows this word? What is an iconoclast? Never heard of it? Icon. What's an icon? It's a statue. It's an idol. Okay, it's an icon. Or a little small picture of a being is an icon. Clasto means to break. An iconoclast, someone who breaks the idols, who knocks down prevailing beliefs. I'm going to play the iconoclast here on a couple of topics that a lot of you may have very strong beliefs about. And I'm doing it intentionally. And some of you this will be new to some of you, it's going to be old to some of you, it's going to piss some of you off, some of it's going to be revelation to others. Wonderful. All those are wonderful. Let's all talk about it afterwards. Sacred cow. Dairy products are healthy. I grew up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin. Nature's perfect food. Got up at 4:30 in the morning, milk our 40 cows. Flash. Let's reconsider this. From one who knows, the purpose of cow's milk, really, is to turn a 65-pound calf into a 700-pound cow as rapidly as possible. Cow's milk is baby calf growth fluid. That's what the stuff is. And people, everything in that white liquid, the hormones, the lipids, the sodium, the protein, the growth factors, IGF-1, insulin, everything is there to blow you up into a great big cow or it wouldn't be there. And whether you pour it on your cereal as a liquid, whether you churn it into butter, whether you coagulate it into yogurt, whether you ferment it into cheese, whether you freeze it into ice cream, it's baby calf growth fluid. Lowe's do that. I can see the dairy eaters by the fat they carry around their necks. They walk in my office, I can see the cheese eaters and the dairy eaters. And if you are trying to lose weight and are having a hard time and you're eating baby calf growth fluid in any form, you're kidding yourself. Stop doing that. The proteins are not gentle either. Casein, lactalbumin, you got asthma. Boy, you want that stuff in your bloodstream flowing through your bronchial membranes. Makes you tight and wheezy. It sets off antibody reactions that kill the pancreas and sets you up for type 1 diabetes. And this is full of growth factors. You got a breast cancer growing, you got a prostate cancer, stuff's like throwing gasoline on a fire. Have a look in the mirror. Do you have big ears and a tail? If you do, if you're a baby calf, you should drink baby calf growth food. If you're not, you should not be eating this stuff. Here's why. I'm serious about this one. Cow's milk is the lactation secretions of a large bovine mammal that just had a baby. That's why she's given that milk. Cows do not normally give milk. Like all mammals, the only reason they're lactating is they just had a baby. And indeed, cows, the farmer calls the breeder and he comes and he takes out this long wand full of bull semen and impregnates the cow. And she gets pregnant, she carries that calf for 9 months, and then she goes into labor and has a baby. The baby wants to nurse on the mother's udder. Farmer doesn't want that to happen. He wants that milk for himself. Take the calf away. If it's a female calf, she's returned to the dairy herd to become a four-legged milk pump like her mother. But if it's a little boy calf, it's of no use to the dairy farmer. So what does he do with the boy calf? He puts him in a little wooden pen, chains by the neck, and feeds him iron-poor milk for 4 months. For 16 weeks, that little pen can't move, doesn't want his muscles getting strong. And then at 16 weeks, they hang him up by the heels and slit his throat and sell it as milk-fed veal. The veal industry is an essential, necessary part of the dairy industry. To keep that milk coming, you got to keep those calves coming. And every other calf that's a little boy winds up in the veal pen getting its throat cut. After 4 to 5, 6 years of calves and milk, the dairy cow gets burnt out. So her milk production starts going down. She's of no use to the farmer who's only interested in his bottom line. He calls the slaughterhouse truck. The slaughterhouse comes and loads the cow up, and off she goes, shot in the head, hung up, throat cut, turned into hamburger. Their flesh is, dairy cow's flesh in the meat case isn't very pretty, so they grind it up and sell it as hamburger, and that's what you're eating at McDonald's. They're old ground-up dairy cows. That's what happens to them. So people ask vegans, you don't have to kill the cow, why don't you drink milk? The dairy barn is a short stopping off place on the way to the slaughterhouse, okay, where 5 years worth of calves and milk gets sucked off these poor animals before they're turned into burgers. Okay? It's the slaughter industry, and I don't want to give those folks my money for something that not only I don't need, I don't want, nor should you. Cow's milk is a lactation secretion of a large bovine mammal just had a baby. And like all mother's milk, it's full of estrogens. And scary amounts, because now, it used to be when I was a boy on the farm, when you made the cow pregnant for the next cycle, she dried up. She stopped giving milk while she's pregnant, waiting to have her baby. Then the milk would let down, she'd start to give. But now the smart, genetically modified guys at the Monsanto labs have modified the calf and the cow embryos. So now they're producing cows that you make them pregnant and they keep giving milk. Well, now you're getting the milk off of a pregnant female bovine. Well, what do you think the estrogen level of her milk is going to be while she's pregnant? And indeed, that's what these researchers found. Modern genetically improved dairy cows continue to lactate throughout almost their entire pregnancy. Therefore, recent commercial cow's milk contains large amounts of estrogen and progesterone. Dairy industry didn't want you to know about this. So with regard to the exposure of prepubertal children to exogenous estrogens, we're concerned about what eating all this estrogen in the milk and the ice cream and the yogurt and the cheese day after day after day after day might do to a growing little girl or a growing little boy. Is this a smart thing to be doing? So they were going to check the blood and the urine of people who were drinking milk and see what shows up there. Well, no surprise. They took 7 men, 6 prepubertal children, and 5 women. They gave essentially, to the grown men, they gave them a cup of milk 4 times during the day to make up for all to represent the cheese and the ice cream and the yogurt, 4 cups of milk a day. And they collected their urine and looked for estrogens, similar with the men and the boys. Well, what do you think happened? A big wash of estrogens through these guys' bodies showed up in the urine. The urine concentration of estrone, estradiol, estriol, and pregnenolone significantly increased in all the adults and the children. Surprise, surprise, they're drinking estrogens 4 times a day. Yes? Pardon me? What about it? Organic milk. You are drinking the lactation secretions of a large bovine mammal that just had a baby. It's full of estrogens. Organic, it's full of estrogens. It's biology. Okay. Even though they're, now this is extra goosed up, but I get what your question is. Yeah, even regular cows, their milk is full of estrogens. All milk is. That's a mother's milk, it's full of estrogens. Very importantly, when they checked the blood on the guys, oh, they had lots of estrogen, a lot of progesterone, surprise, surprise. But when they checked the hormones from their pituitary glands, luteinizing hormone, follicular stimulating, those were down. And what happened to testosterone? Significantly decreased in men. You cheese guys out there, like your cheese nachos? So, why is it not a good idea to drink cow's milk? Ladies, getting the breast lumps and the biopsies and the mastectomies and the breast cancers, you're drinking estrogens every day. Is it a surprise that 60% of you ladies are sometime in the next 15 years going to be in the shower and you're going to go, oh, what's that? And your life is never the same. You need cow's milk like you need giraffe milk or horse milk. And the uterus, this is a bag of muscle where the baby grows. This is a hormone-responsive muscle. You stimulate this day after day, month after month, year after year with estrogens. What do you think happens? The muscle starts growing. And you get these tumors of muscle. They're called fibroids. And they get big and they bleed. And the woman has heavy periods and she gets anemic and she gets hysterectomy. It's from the frickin' dairy that she's eating. It's for cows. And guys, what do you think eating estrogens does for you? Guys need estrogens like General Custer needed more Indians at Little Bighorn. Anybody know who General Custer was? All right, 1, 2, okay. Folks, it's the milk of a cow. There's no reason to consume it. Where are you going to get calcium, right? What? What about soy milk? Much better, much better. Almond milk's even better than that. Cheese. Oh, not my cheese, don't drink my cheese. It's congealed butter fat with cholesterol, salt, and growth hormones, and it smells like dirty socks. The truth of it is. Ice cream is frozen butter, fat, and sugar. It's what it is. See that stuff for what it is and what it is doing to you. Sir? So do we replace our milk with almond milk? Much better. Almond milk sure beats dairy milk. Hands down. Any plant milk beats dairy milk because it doesn't have all the estrogen and the growth factors and the antibiotics and the hormones and all the pesticide, all that stuff they put in that milk. So we're going to tell, oh no, the dairy industry's got American women terrified to not consume dairy products. Where am I going to get my calcium? My bones are going to fall apart. I'm going to get osteoporosis. Oh no, I got to keep eating my cheese. Don't tell me I can't eat cheese. Flash for the dairy industry. Where are you going to get your calcium? Same place cows get theirs. Flash, cows don't drink milk. Think about that. Cows don't drink milk. Where do they get all that calcium? From that milk in their big bones. From the green plants they eat. That's what the calcium is. You got to have calcium to make lignans and fiber in plants. And that's where we should get. This is where the calcium is. It's in the broccoli and the kale and the chard and the Brussels sprouts and the asparagus and the green vegetables. And you shouldn't go to bed at night till you've had a good helping of something dark and leaf and green, dark green and leafy. But very important, this whole, what a scam they run on us. You don't get enough calcium, bones going to fall apart. Nonsense. Osteoporosis is not a disease of calcium deficiency. It never was, it isn't now. The whole thing is a scam. What do you mean? No, absolutely, I'm positive. Most people in developing countries, China, Asia, places where dairy products aren't available, they do quite fine at 200, 800 milligrams of calcium a day, way below the 1,500 milligrams Americans are supposed to take. And they don't get osteoporosis. They have strong bones throughout their lives. What's going on? It's not a calcium deficiency. It never was. Osteoporosis is disuse atrophy of the bones. Any of you have any interest in physiology or biology, look up Wills' law. of bones. Bones are alive. There are cells in bones called osteoblasts, and when you start using your bones, the osteoblasts wake up and they start spinning out more bone structure. And the more you use bones, the stronger they get, just like your muscles hypertrophy if you use them. If you don't use them, they turn into guacamole. Same thing happens with your bones. You use them, they get stronger. You don't use them, they turn into styrofoam, and they crumble. And that's what osteoporosis is. Want to make your bones stronger? Use them. Carry weight. Every step you take with a pack on your back, a weight on your shoulder, a little wow, weight goes down your spine, down your hips, and your bones get stronger. That's what we were meant to do. We're animals meant to move and to carry weight. You do this all your lives, you'll make it to 95 with strong bones, and you don't have to take Fosamax or drink milk or anything. It's not a disease of calcium deficiency. But we don't use them. We do this all day. Homo computerus. And what do you think's happening to his bones as he's sitting there? They're dissolving. Absolutely. Up to you, but your bones. So you want to use them, want to get them stronger, use them. But don't do things that weaken them. Acidic soft drinks, Cokes, etc., have phosphoric acid that makes you pee out bone calcium. Meats and grain products make you lose calcium. Sugar, salt, smoke, alcohol, all these things make bones dissolve. But meanwhile, the most important thing to do is to use them. Don't just sit there and take calcium pills. It's not a disease of calcium deficiency, and it winds up calcifying your arteries instead. So what's all the problem? Let's get a little 20th century high-tech info here. So what? So you go and you have a debauch out at your local burger place. So what? Well, what happens when you pour all that through your bloodstream, the problem is that your food is alive. We used to think just dumb old sugar and fat and protein, that's all it is. No, it's not. Food's chemically alive, and as it flows through every cell in your body, your DNA in every cell is unrolled, and the nutrients flow through your cells and plays your DNA like a piano. And it turns on genes that turn on enzymes that make your muscles work and your nerves work and your vision see. And that is the difference. I won't go into it right now, but here's your DNA with all the messages for which enzymes to turn on. The enzymes wrapped around these proteins called histones. The DNA is wrapped around these two enzymes called histones. If the histones roll apart, then the DNA gets red. If they roll together, then the gene is turned off. And that's how genes get turned on and off, and they wind up, I won't get into the science of it, but that determines what enzymes get made in your tissues. The point is, the substances, all this that's in this kind of meal that flushes through your bloodstream is going to turn on a very different set of enzymes than this meal is going to do. Every meal makes a big difference as far as how well your brain functions, your muscles function, whether you get cancer or not, whether your immune system stays strong. Every meal makes a difference. Hippocrates had it right. Let food be your medicine. It influences more than he could possibly have realized. The diseases I see, the high blood pressure, diabetes, arthritis, colitis, asthma, migraines, it's from what the people are eating, what you guys are eating. I won't ask for a show of hands who's got asthma here, who's got migraines, who's got acne, whose mother's got diabetes. A lot of hands would go up. We bring them to our place, we feed them a really healthy plant-based meal, and guess what? Their symptoms go away, their blood pressures come down, their weight goes down, their diabetes goes away, their migraines disappear, their asthma clears out. These are reversible diseases because it's from what they were eating. Now, I'm going to put a slight pause on it right here as far as the medicine and nutrition goes, because I want to take us in a very different but very important place. As I mentioned, I grew up on my uncle's dairy farm in Wisconsin. And my life was filled with walking long walks through the forests and hawks and eagles and deer and canoeing on beautiful lakes. I really am a passionate environmentalist. I love this earth, and I grieve for what we are doing to it and what your generation is going to be left with and your kids and their kids. Say, talk about high crimes and misdemeanors. Back in the 1980s, I was working on an Indian reservation in Northern California, and I was very isolated, and my partner said, why don't you get a pilot's license? And I did. And I love to fly airplanes. And from 10,000 feet, the left-hand seat, you can see what we're doing to this planet very, very clearly. If you look down, you see we're scalping the mountains, and the soil is running into the rivers. The river's running brown with topsoil after every rainstorm. The rivers silt up, get polluted, and the ecosystems start to die. We are clear-cutting the rainforest at a shocking rate, the area size of France every year, and they are the lungs of the earth, and they are disappearing. Deserts are increasing as we are drawing down water from aquifers and out of rivers. And most grievously, every 3.6 seconds, a child dies of hunger. This was haunting me throughout the 70s and 80s and 90s. Like, could there be a connection? Why is all this happening? Well, the answer made itself very clear to me in a book by a man who later became a good friend of mine, John Robbins. His father, Irv Robbins, founded Baskin-Robbins Ice Cream. He was the heir to their fortune. He walked away from it. If you want to find out the connection between our current fast food diet and all these ecological catastrophes, get Diet for New America. It's in a film. You can watch it in an hour. The upshot is this. You guys are faced, and we all are faced, with a litany of environmental nightmares. It turns out that the majority of environmental destruction on every level, and I'll talk about them individually, on the planet today, is due from animal agriculture, and it's driven for our desire to put that burger in our mouth. Deforestation, no question. Here was the forest cover of our continent in 1620, 1850, 1920. We have cleaved off the forest cover of this continent to turn it into vast fields of feed corn and soybeans, of government-subsidized animal fodder to cheaply feed cattle for artificially cheap beef. Okay? Your tax dollars are paying the corn and soybean farmers so they can sell their grains at 2 cents a bushel, so the feedlot feeders can feed this artificially cheap grain that you've paid for in your tax subsidies to the cattle, so they can turn around and sell the burgers for 79 cents, $1.19. But it's all phony. It's because it's all government subsidized. If meat really sold for what it costs to produce, it would cost about $40 a pound. But the phony subsidies keeps it artificially low. There's no question what we've done to the forest. Soil erosion. As I said, the rivers are running brown every rainstorm in this country. Topsoil, precious topsoil, responsible for all our food, pours off the farmers' fields across the United States. Here is the drainage area of the Missouri River, the Ohio, the upper Mississippi, the Tennessee, Arkansas. They all drain into the Mississippi. Here is where our corn and soybeans are grown. And after every rainstorm, prime American topsoil hemorrhages into this river system. And if you are standing in New Orleans on the Mississippi River, where the Mississippi goes into the Gulf of Mexico, prime American Midwestern topsoil is rushing past you in the river at the rate of a dump truck load a second. It is pouring out into the Gulf of Mexico. There is a dead zone so dense no oxygen is in there because the phosphates that the farmers are pouring on their fields up here to grow the corn and soybeans are such a powerful fertilizer. They cause a huge algae bloom down here that when the algae die, it sucks up so much oxygen that nothing can live in this dead zone here because we want cheap cheeseburgers and pepperoni pizzas. Water depletion, stunning. We are draining the underwater aquifers. We are diverting rivers, all to irrigate alfalfa fields, soybean fields, and corn fields to make cheap fodder for cheap beef. And the deserts are winning. Water pollution. The livestock in America produce 60,000 tons of manure a second. 100 million pigs, 100 million cattle. Every feedlot produces enough waste every day. Every big major 100,000 cow feedlot produces enough sewage a city the size of Cincinnati, which then pours into the rivers and kills the fish. Pesticides and herbicides are sprayed everywhere, mostly on corn and soybeans to keep those little corn borers from destroying that farmer's bottom line with his feed corn crop. That's very nice, but guess what? The pesticides can't tell the good insects from the bad insects, including the honeybees. which are dying at a stunning rate in colony collapse disorder, mostly from the pesticides that are being sprayed. And Time Magazine talked about a world without bees. We're looking at a world without fruits and nuts and flowers. And when we clear cut the forests and we burn them, we're releasing carbon into the air that lingers and traps sunlight in many, many forms. And the Earth is heating up. In case you haven't heard, here's the polar ice caps. Here's the poor polar bears paying the price for cheap cheeseburgers. It's what you're paying for with every Whopper. You're paying for this. And there's soon going to be 9 billion of us. Do you think we can produce burgers for 9 billion people when a pound of beef takes 16 pounds of grain, 25,000 gallons of water, and many gallons of oil produced? Do you think we can do burgers for 9 billion? No. And all that carbon comes back down into the water with sulfur from coal-burning power plants, and is turning the oceans acidic as we strip mine them and clear cut them to take every last fish out. So the problem, destroying our forests, eroding our topsoil. Not making this up, the United Nations came out with a very powerful study in 1999 called Livestock's Long Shadow. If you want to read about what the UN is thinking, what it's saying, it says livestock are not only harmed by human-caused global warming, they also cause about 18% of all the methane and carbon dioxide is having something to do with agricultural production. I didn't like that number when I first read it. Now I'm more convinced that it's inaccurate. Why? Well, environmental specialists at the World Bank and other places have said, no, over half of all the greenhouse gases, CO2, methane, have something to do with the production of animal flesh. How can that be? No, it's from transportation. It's not from animal agriculture. Oh yeah? Everybody's right? Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of trucks on the highways. That's right, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of cars. That's right, transportation, transportation. Folks, nobody ever asks, what's in the trucks? The entire agriculture industry is in those trucks. Fertilizer, cattle feed, meat, irrigation pipes, fuel. The entire restaurant industry is in that truck. The entire fast food industry is in those trucks. It's not a separate category. Oh, can't mix it with animal agriculture. Oh, yeah? All the fossil fuel is burned. It's not just for heating houses. All those tractors and trucks and irrigation pumps put carbon dioxide into the air. Think of the electricity that is being generated just to keep meat cold right now. Think of all the freezers and refrigerators and restaurants that are using electricity. We are eating an unprecedented amount of animal flesh, and we are producing it by pouring oil into the soil. We are pouring hydrocarbon, pesticides and herbicides and fertilizers into the soil, and you get a temporary goose-up of production. For 5, 6, 8 years, you'll get a lot of corn out of that field, and then the soil is dead. You have defilized the soil with all those poisons. This is not a sustainable system to feed us or the world. So, I'm going to show you pictures now that are a little hard to look at, but it's one last reality out of deference to the fact that I was invited here by a Buddhist organization. And the Buddhists recognize the interconnectedness of all life. They know on this planet you cannot do one thing. You can't do just one thing. It sets off a cascade of events that influence everything around you. So, when you go for those hot wings, it's easy to forget about where those hot wings came from. But to produce that, millions and millions of chickens, live, intelligent animals, are kept in absolutely hideous, barbaric conditions. They cannot spread their wings. This is just to produce flesh. And in America, we kill 1 million chickens an hour in this country. Okay? 1 million living animals an hour for hot wings and chicken breasts and chicken McNuggets. But we don't see it. Millions of animals an hour, never see it. Not in any of our lives. Pigs, chickens, cows, we don't see it. Because it's hidden from us. It's out there on these little discrete, nondescript sheds out 2 hills over as you drive through the country. You never see it. It's all kept away from us. Oh, don't want to see this. Oh, we don't want to let people see where their Thanksgiving turkey really comes from. So feel all the ammonia those birds are breathing in, all the infections they're getting, all the antibiotics they need. Oh, we don't want to let them see where their burgers are standing knee deep in their own manure day after day after day. We don't want to see that. Oh, we want to see where those bacon strips and pork sausages are coming from. And at the end of every one of these animals' lives, sorry if it's a little distressing to see, but the truth is, they're all slaughtered. Hideously. The point is, every time you pay that nice man at the cash register for your burger or your chicken wings, you're saying, great, thank you, do it some more. I'll pay for that. I'll pay for that, no problem. Oh, that's a great idea, I'll pay for that too. Your money has great power, and you are paying for this. And that's one reason I became a vegan. I could not in good conscience pay for this any longer. It's not fair to the animal, not fair to the earth, it's just not fair. Everything has consequences. Yet, people say, my body needs some animal protein. I tried to be a vegan once, didn't work. I got all weak and tired and didn't work. And I ate some meat, I feel better. I'm a paleo guy. What's with that? Because it's a valid experience on a lot of people's parts. What about friends who say they have to have some animal protein? You know what they look like. Well, there may be a good reason why these folks think they need some animal protein. Because you slather meat on the intestinal wall 2-3 times a day from age 3. They're in their McDonald's getting their Happy Meal at age 3. The body will get pretty dependent on meat. And you take it away, and it's like taking heroin away, and you draw down on canteen stores, et cetera, and people will feel it, and then they eat the meat again, ooh, they feel better. But that's not normal physiology. We created that from feeding all that meat that frequently from childhood. To help bring this into perspective, I'm not saying you have to be a vegan. I'm not taking you to be a vegan. Relax. Okay. But I also want some common sense reality checks here. Most Americans eat a piece of animal flesh 3 times a day. They have bacon and eggs for breakfast, they have a cheeseburger for lunch, they have pizza or chicken for dinner. The American way. There's a piece of an animal out in the middle of every meal. It's an animal-based diet. And for a plea for sanity, I'll just say, stop for a minute and consider this. Not even mountain lions, official carnivores, eat flesh 3 times a day. Tigers in the wild, tigers in the zoo do not eat flesh 3 times a day. Official carnivores who really need it. They get it once or twice a week if they can get it. But we naked apes give ourselves permission for this non-stop flesh orgy. Every 5 hours, piece of animal muscles going down our gullet. We become the carnivorous apes. Man, we're just eating flesh, eating flesh, eating flesh. We do it, and it's killing us. There's no question. You want to give yourself colon cancer? Pack your colon full of meat 3 times a day. Let that rub on your colon wall for 30 years. Watch what you set off in there. I won't go into all this, but the documentation is well beyond speculation at this point. So if that's the case, what do you do? Especially those folks who really suffer when they don't have meat. I'll say this. How do you make some sense of it? You don't have to be a vegan. But take a tip from the mountain lions. Mountain lions eat flesh a couple times a day, so should we. A couple times a week, so should we. If you're really doing it for nutritional reasons, because your body needs some animal proteins, and you may well have created that dependency from your diet all these years, then I say, fair enough. If you're really doing it for nutritional reasons, then consider it a nutritional supplement. It's medicinal, like a medicine, okay? Consider it medicinal. It's like a very expensive vitamin pill that is toxic in large amounts. You wouldn't eat handfuls of multivitamins, don't eat in big slabs of steak and fish. I say find the smallest amount of animal flesh you think your body requires to function. Find it produced in the least harmful way, not feedlot beef, etc. And consume it as seldom as you can. Have a little 3-ounce piece of grass-fed beef, whatever it is you're going to eat, and coast on that for a couple of days, man. That's all you need. Right? And if you eat it on Monday, coast till Wednesday, Thursday, have another little piece, coast on that for a few days. You don't need to eat animal flesh on it every day, that's for sure. And if I may be candid, to continue making everybody uncomfortable, if you eat meat every day, and certainly if you eat it more than once a day, it is not because your body needs some animal protein. Way too much protein. Because you like the taste of flesh in your mouth. The truth of it is. And that's an expensive and dangerous habit that threatens not only your health, but the health of everyone on this planet and all our kids. And it's time to re-examine what we're eating. If you just ate animal flesh every other day and made every alternate day a plant-based day, that alone would drop world meat consumption by 50%. That would change everything. The soils would start to heal, the waters would get fresher, the forests would start coming back, the people would get healthier, and if you could make 2 out of 3 have 2 plant-based days before you have your meat day, that would drop everybody's meat consumption by 2/3. That would change everything. We would get healthier, the entire ecosystem would get healthier, the economy would get better, our medical costs would go down, everything would get better. We have that kind of power simply from deciding what we're going to have for dinner. So what I'm saying, the upshot of this is consider a transition to a plant-based, from an animal-based diet, which we currently have, to a plant-based one. You don't have to be a vegan. But this food will fill you up and keep you lean and healthy. You can eat all of it you want. There's no portion control. I don't care if you have 6 plates of this. It's all fiber and water. You pass it right through you. It doesn't stick to you. So I was told, what do you want to hear about? You want to hear about how to eat healthy. So here's the how to eat healthy part. Before it was all the why, here's the how. This is not a diet of deprivation. There's a ton of fabulous food to eat. You can eat all the stuff you want. You'll still wind up nice and lean and healthy. You can make it any ethnic flavor, Italian, East Indian, Mexican curry. Go knock yourself out, okay? It's not a flavorless cuisine here we're talking about. Protein, but where am I going to get my protein? People, the biggest animals on the planet, elephants, buffaloes, giraffes, grow to thousands of pounds of mammalian muscle without ever eating cheeseburgers or pepperoni pizzas. Oh, we can grow to our scrawny 100 pounds, 150 pounds. The protein is everywhere. Beans and peas and chickpeas and lentils. Protein is not an issue. It's laughable how much protein is around. And in fact, those of you who fear that you're going to be protein deficient, I invite you to sit down, go to Google Images, and Google vegan bodybuilders. Well, take a careful look at this crew's ripped physiques and see if you feel that these folks are protein deficient. Relax about the protein. If you're eating 2,000 calories, you're going to be getting 50, 60 grams of high-grade protein. You know, have something with legumes in it every day. Have some lentils or beans or peas or chickpeas, and protein will take care of itself. How to eat healthy? The trick is to eat food as grown, as was growing in the field, so you could recognize it. This is a complaint against processed foods. If you like potatoes, wonderful, eat them. Eat potatoes, not potato chips. You like corn? Wonderful, eat a lot of corn on the cob, not corn chips, okay? You want food as real live food. Whole Foods is the name of the store. You know, that's what you want to eat. And you can all of it you want. You know? So what's a healthy breakfast? Fruit and oatmeal works every time with some almond milk, or rice milk, soy milk, pick a plant milk. You know? Start your day off nicely. Just have some raw vegetables, have a salad once a day at least. You can buy salads pre-made in plastic bags. You don't have to make a salad, you buy it at the salad bar here. But have something fresh and live and green every day. You really need it. Don't eat everything dead out of packages and boxes. Hearty main dishes to have. I'll give you some recipes where you can get some recipes, etc. Eat all this food you want. A lot of healthy stir fries you can make. Again, don't go to bed without some steamed greens every day. Again, I just go to the market, I look for that emerald green color. That's all I'm caring about is the color. I don't care if it's kale or chard or broccoli, Brussels sprouts, bok choy. If you buy it, if you see it in dark green, buy it, bring it home, throw it in your vegetable steamer, put it in a pot, 5 minutes of hot steam, turns it bright green, squeeze some lemon juice over it, pour some salad dressing over it, and chow down, but have something dark and green every day. Again, that's where the calcium is. You want to eat healthy, get yourself a crock pot, even in your dorm room. The bachelor's friend. How do you use it? Buy your favorite veggies, cut them up, throw in the crock pot, fill full of water, throw in a cup of beans or lentils or noodles, throw in your favorite seasonings, put the lid on, hit the button, go to bed. Cooks all night. Slow cooker. Next morning, full of hot, delicious vegetable, lentil, curry, soup, whatever you made. Turn it down to low. Keep it at eating temperature. Won't go bad. And just eat your way through it. Every time you're walking through the dorm room or the kitchen, got a yen on for something, ladle out a big bowl of soup, chow down. If you're going out for the day, there's no ends of things you can make with that crock pot. And again, you can eat all you want, season the heck out of it, and chow down. Eat, my children, eat. If you're going out for the day, get yourself 2 or 3 wide-mouth thermos jugs, and before you leave your dorm room, fill them up with the soup. And take 2 or 3 of these with you into class or between classes, and knock back some fruit, some soup, and keep your belly full of healthy stuff that doesn't stick to you. A rice cooker in the dorm room makes life real easy. A cup of rice, 2 cups of water, 40 minutes later full of rice. Or barley, or millet, or quinoa. Cook any grain, shuts off automatically. You can throw in some frozen veggies and some seasoning and turns into vegetable rice pilaf right in the cooker. Lift out the inner pot, put it in your fridge. Now you got a pot full of rice, put in your soup. And here's what you want to eat for sweets. Have a mango, have some grapes, bananas, blackberries, etc. And this is the third thing that goes in your food satchel. Going out for the day, you ought to have a container of salad and dressing with you, a couple of thermoses of soup, and a Tupperware full of cut up mango slices and melon chunks and grapes and blackberries. This is how to get past the temptation of the golden arches. Go out with a food satchel with salads, dressing, a couple of thermoses of soup, and some cut up fruit, and eat your way through the day. Have a couple of swallows of soup, throw in a couple of blackberries or grapes, and go on to your next class. That's how you keep your belly full of healthy stuff. No excuse. The other is just being lazy. Eat all you want, stuff yourself silly, go crazy with it. So, getting to the end. What I'm trying to say is that every meal, your food runs through your tissues like a river. And it turns on genes and turns off genes in every cell. The question is, what's the quality of that river you're pouring through your tissues every day? If you're eating a processed, fast food, burger-based diet, then the quality of the river you're pouring through your cells look like this. But if you're eating a diet that's just filled with lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, and that does this to your bloodstream, then that's the quality of your river. And that does good things for you. And that river of life that flows through you should be free of contaminants, full of nutrients. And it's the entire food stream that matters to take responsibility for. And by that I mean this. The river of life, it's a hokey analogy, but the point is the water in that river is the water in these fruits and vegetables. That's what you want to pour through your system. That's what brings in all the good vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients stuff. That's the river that you want to run through you. But it's more than just the food. It's your thoughts, it's what you do, it's the work that you do, and your serenity, man. We get so invaded by the media and Fox News and all that stuff. My serenity is important to me, and I've stopped listening to most of the media at this point. My serenity is more important than their chatter. And the love that you give and receive is all part of that river. So, I can't do it. Just do it. Start. Make a start. Instead of a Snickers bar, have a mango tonight. You need a little motivation, summon her up there. You're tempted? No. Been there, done that. I know how you feel after I eat that Snickers bar. I ain't going to do it this time. Been there already. Okay? I can't do that. Well, a couple of pithy sayings. Argue for your limitations. Sure enough, they're yours. But whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right. The one thing's for sure, if you don't change where you're headed, you're going to wind up where you're going. And you don't want to wind up like that big, fat, heavy guy in my office. She's your friend, just start doing it yourself. Don't say anything to anybody. You don't need any comparisons. You don't need to talk to your roommates. You don't talk to your family. You don't talk to anybody. You owe nothing to nobody, no explanation. Just start doing it yourself. Because God forbid you get a breast lump or a chest pain or all the things that can befall you. It's only you in that hospital bed. It's not your roommate. It's not the people at work. So, in chatting at you enough, there's lots of references. I'll leave it with our host here. No end of information if you want to learn how to make this transition. Most important thing, don't worry about it, be happy. So I've got a couple of my DVDs over here on digestion and fasting and understanding your blood tests. Anybody's interested. I'll take some questions. Sir?
What about to drink?
What about?
Water?
Water, yeah, good point. Yeah, ultimately, water's the best drink, of course. But I like cold, sweet, fizzy drinks, and so I make my own. When I'm thirsty, I'll take a bottle of, well, I'll take a glass, put a couple of fingers of fruit juice in the bottom, cranberry juice, grape juice, whatever, and pour in some cold fizzy water, some seltzer water, carbonated water, and make and a couple of ice cubes, make my own fizzy drinks. And that works, but basically, I'm a water drinker.
You mentioned earlier about the cost of healthcare being connected to the diet. So you believe that despite what the government's doing besides healthcare, the real action that should be taken is changing our diet and not money?
Absolutely. As much as the good-hearted, I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No.
Yeah. No matter how good-hearted the intent of the Affordable Care Act and all this stuff, it isn't health care, it's disease care. They're just talking about who's going to pay for the disease care. Nobody's gotten at the root of the problem. None of those therapies are reversible. Heart disease, clogged arteries, reversible disease. Eat a healthy diet and your arteries open up. And you don't need the heart attack, the surgery, the stents and the statins and all that stuff. Nobody's talking about the cause of the disease. It's the burgers, it's the food they're eating, it's the food they're eating. And nobody wants to say that because the meat industry and the dairy industry and the agriculture folks, they're so scared of, to the sacred cows there that they're terrified. But the truth of, nobody has gotten to the root of the problem. It's what they're eating. The fast food industry have learned that fat, salt, and sugar on your tongue is addictive, and so they start slathering on the little kids' tongues and your tongues day after day after day, and soon they got you by the tongue. I want that fat, salt, and sugar. Do I want Italian fat, salt, and sugar? How about Thai fat, salt, and sugar? How about Burger King fat, salt, and sugar? And they got you, and they got your money too. But the forests and the animals and the waters and your kids are going to pay the price for those burgers. So we're so easy to be disempowered these days. Here's one move that you can make that has some power to it. So I'm not going to give them my money to destroy this planet and hurt those animals and destroy my arteries. Thank you. I've got other things to do with my hard-earned money. And make a different world. Everybody your age said, that's the last burger I'm eating. And I'm starting eating real food. Everything would change. Within weeks, the meat industry would fall. Would close down. You're going to put all those farmers out of the work. No, have them grow something else. I don't want to throw any farmers off the land, but grow broccoli, grow grapefruit, do something else with the land. Don't have to grow cattle and soybeans for cheeseburgers. Okay, I don't want to put any farmers out of business, any ranchers, but do something else with the land that heals the land instead of destroys the land. Not that hard. But you're right, no one's talking about the cause, yes? 24 or 36-hour fast. We do fasts at our clinic, and it's a very, very powerful modality. We were talking about water fasting only. We do juice cleanses as well. But fasting is a very powerful modality. Boy, lowers high blood pressure, clears out diabetes, clears out asthma, clears out migraine headaches. If there was a pill that did what a water fast did, we'd all be rich. And I've done a DVD on fasting here if you want to learn more about it. But he's asking specifically about 36-hour fast. There's some advantage to them in that our digestive system is the only system that never gets to rest, right? When you're asleep, your nervous system can rest, your muscles rest, everything rests, but you just had dinner, right? And the Haagen-Dazs just before you as you walk through the kitchen, and you're sleeping, but your intestines are working all night. Well, on a fast, even your digestive system gets relaxed. That's a good thing. The issue with the fast, however, is when you start drinking water, for about the first 48, 72 hours, you're just burning off circulating blood sugar. And That's the worst part of the fast. So you're hungry or irritable and despairing, and it's the least fun of the part of the fast. After the first 36, 48, 72 hours, all the blood sugar is burned off, and then you start metabolizing fat stores. And as you metabolize fat tissue, molecules called ketones come into the bloodstream. And ketones have some interesting properties, one of which they suppress hunger. And by day 4 or 5, hunger's gone. We see people sitting down in our dining room watching other people eat. They're not even hungry. And all the energy that usually goes to digesting your food on a fast is freed up. And people feel energetic, and boy, they stop me in the courtyard of our place. Doc, I haven't felt this good in years. I haven't eaten in 3 weeks, but I feel energetic and wonderful. And that's where a prolonged fast gets you, and you feel light and energetic. It's a wonderful experience. So to come back to his question, how about a 36-hour fast? Well, now I've supervised hundreds and hundreds of fasts. I see the 36 hours is the worst part of the fast, the roughest, toughest part of the fast. And so to do that, it's a good thing to do it. Rest your gut. I'm not saying don't do it. But it's not fun because you're hungry and irritable and wondering when is this going to be over. And that'll become your fasting. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing because I hate it. And when the truth is, you're just putting your toe in the water, and that's the worst part of the fast there. So it's better than nothing, I suppose, but don't get discouraged if it's an uncomfortable experience. It's not what real fasting really is. Okay. Yeah, this is the clot of blood. This is the serum, and you saw earlier, it should be clear. But this is all the butter fat and the cheese, the egg yolk fat and the mayonnaise, olive oil, the corn oil that the fries were fried in, butter fat in the milkshake. This is all fat. And olive oil is not healthy anything. That whole Mediterranean diet thing is a scam. The Greeks are the fattest people in Europe. Their heart disease rate is as high as ours are. Olive oil is liquid fat in a bottle. There's nothing heart healthy about it. Pouring oil on your food is pouring oil on your food. There's nothing healthy about it. It does that to your bloodstream. You want to know what olive oil is? It's the white sugar of the fat world. It's a junk food. And we can go into the story of the Mediterranean, how they came to that conclusion. It's absurd. If you really read the Mediterranean diet study, the Mediterranean diet did better. They had 3 less strokes in their group than the standard high-fat diet did. None of those diets reversed the disease. This diet will reverse the disease. We'll stop arteries from clogging up. But the Mediterranean diet, especially as they're practicing now, pouring olive oil, it's heart healthy, Mediterranean diet, domini, olive oil. And you're just doing that to your blood. There's nothing heart healthy about olive oil. What do you use it for? You stir fry veggies in it, and you make salad dressings with it. Well, you can stir fry your vegetables in vegetable broth. You can make salad dressings 30 seconds in a blender, throw some veggies in with a couple of walnuts and an orange, hit the button, salad dressing. You don't need olive oil for anything. Yes? I'm sorry? Coconut oil, same thing. Any oil out of a bottle is a junk food. You want a piece of coconut? Have a piece of coconut. And I'm not saying a low-fat diet, but get it out of walnuts and avocados and coconuts and almonds and real, you need some fat in your diet, but get it out of whole foods, not out of a frickin' bottle. There's nothing natural or normal about bottled oils. It's a junk food. No other animal does that.
So you're saying that instead of getting the processed oil in the bottle, we should get the oil from natural food?
Yes, absolutely. Have a handful of walnuts. Have an avocado. Have some flax seeds. There's oils around. That's where nature meant for us to get them from.
You typically give students some kind of sample of 3 meals. I mean, the students are having a very busy schedule.
Sure, yeah. Well, I kind of went through them. For breakfast, grab a banana. Have a piece of fruit in the morning. You don't have to do a whole big deal here, but some cereal and fruit works great. And you don't have to pour any milk on it at all. You can pour apple juice on your cereal. Works very nice. Orange juice works nice on cereal. But certainly rice milk, oat milk, a lot of different milks around. So, yeah, but have some breakfast. Lunches and dinners, 3 dishes to start with that. Soup, salads, and steamed greens. Have a big honker salad at least once a day, if not twice a day, for lunch and dinner. And have a big hearty soup, like we saw here. Have something green. And then you need something denser. You're growing young people. You need rice and beans and lentils and bean burritos and healthy ones, not from Taco Bell there, but you can make your own bean burritos with a tortilla. Or I don't make sandwiches with bread anymore. I make lettuce wraps. I take a big leaf of romaine lettuce and put hummus and carrot sticks and avocado slices and celery sticks and roll it up and make a lettuce wrap, and that works. So lunches and dinners, but sandwiches are fine for you right now if you're a growing person. And then again, all these ethnic cuisines, Chinese, Thai, East Indian, Italian, have fun with it, but just have spaghetti instead of the lamb chops. It's not that great a sacrifice. And man, it changes your body, changes your head, changes the blood going up to your head. You'll be clearer, lighter, and you stay out of the doctor's office. With your asthma goes away, the migraines, the PMS, all the things that make you don't want to spend your life as a medical patient. Trust me, you don't. And I've got so many patients in my office, even now young people. I got young guys with colitis and Crohn's disease. I got obese young women with their diabetes and their asthma and their high blood pressure. And they spend their days limping from the internist to the endocrinologist to the rheumatologist to the gastroenterologist. And they're a professional medical patient. You don't want to do that. You want people living a life. They have a doctor's office, and this food is the ticket to doing that. It really is that powerful. Yes. Yeah, I work at True North Health Center up in Santa Rosa. It's about an hour north of the Golden Gate Bridge. If you go to San Francisco and go north into the wine country, about 50 minutes, you'll come to our Santa Rosa. And it's a nutritionally based clinic. It's a converted apartment complex in a nice part of Santa Rosa. And so we've got 20 apartments there, so we can hold 40 patients in any given time. And at any given time, we've got about a half of them are fasting for their high blood pressure, their diabetes, or arthritis, or colitis, whatever. Half of them just come and eat the food. As we serve this kind of food, really light, clean soups and salads and steamed greens and lentil stews and what I've been telling you here. And so about half the folks water fast, about a third just eat the food, and about a third do juice cleanses. They have 4 big glasses of fresh juice a day. And it's not quite as severe as a water fast. Very nice thing to do. I talk about it on the DVD. And everybody plays it differently. It depends who they are, what their medical needs are. Some people just come in for a weekend just to get reminded what healthy food is. But some folks who really have to stay there, they stay up for a couple of weeks or a couple of months. And we've had fellas, gross obesity, 300 pounds, stayed with us for a year. He left weighing 135. He was buff, he was healthy, but it took him a year to do it. But again, it's just eating the veggies and walking is all you got to do. So it depends. We have quite a versatile type of clientele, mostly people over 50, but we have younger folks with all sorts of interesting conditions as well. Yes?
You said that certain foods activate different parts of our DNA.
Yes.
For example, in my family, there's a lot of family members have eczema and psoriasis.
Yes.
So if we eat right, could we legitimately keep ourselves?
Well, very important question. He's saying his family's got skin stuff, eczema and psoriasis and all that kind of stuff. He's asking, even though I got this genetic propensity, will food make a difference? Absolutely. And this is an important thing, this phrase that I'm going to say now, should be something that you should keep on the ready draw when you hear, it's in your genes, doesn't matter what you do, it's all preordained. What the geneticists have now come to understand is genetics loads the gun, but your diet and lifestyle pulls the trigger. You may have a propensity to it, but if you don't feed it with this processed animal-based diet, these diseases don't manifest. If they do, they're much, much milder. Eczema and psoriasis, well, eczema especially, is a disease of oil problems in the skin. They don't produce enough oil, and their skin gets very dry and flaky. Well, the oils in your diet become the oils in your skin. And if you're eating burgers and cheeses, heavy, saturated fats, you can't expect to make a nice, light, lubricating skin secretion. But when you go to a plant-based diet and these lighter omega-3 oils get into your hair follicles and into your oil glands, the oils become much more lubricating, the skin gets much happier, and eczema usually settles right down. Psoriasis gets better. Psoriasis responds on a fast. It's amazing. I never thought I would see psoriasis clear. Boy, we had a guy in 2 weeks ago. did a 2-week fast, and he had nasty, his psoriasis was painful to look at, and after 2 weeks, it was almost totally gone. I've never seen anything clear so fast. So yes, diet has a huge effect, and so get out the inflammatory stuff, get all the nice phytonutrients from the green and yellow veggies, and watch what happens. There's more to it. You got to keep the skin moisturized, yada, 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 but yes, the food is the precipitating factor, absolutely. And that goes for all of the things, the heart disease, the Alzheimer's, all the things that have a genetic component. Will it manifest in your body? It depends how you treat that body. It depends how you treat those blood vessels and those nerves and those arteries with every meal. That's what determines if it's going to manifest or not. Yes?
Okay, so like take it every day? Or
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't, I wouldn't do 2 cups of it, but a tablespoon on your cereal is fine. It's a lovely thing. Yeah, and you need the omega-3 oils for your skin, and you have lovely skin. Yes, keep taking your chia seeds.
That's also like a egg supplement? Like you could bake with it, so...
Yes,
Put egg in your...
right. As an egg replacer. Eggs aren't so great for a lot of reasons. But they're useful in baking because they hold the dough together. Ground chia seeds and flax seeds as well, they've got a gelatinous sugar in them that when you add water, it turns it almost like egg white. And so you can use chia seeds and flax seeds as an egg replacer. It's funny when I was a young doctor 40 years ago in the intensive care unit. We had all these powerful drugs available to us, and we had all these sick people. And I would sit with the chief resident, the attending physician, and say, oh, well, I can put him on this antibiotic for his infection, and this beta blocker for his arrhythmia, and this calcium channel blocker for his blood pressure, and this medicine for his skin problem, and this steroids for his, and we would just make the list longer and longer for all these powerful drugs because we were going to help him get better. Didn't mention a word about what he was eating. They got him in the care unit to begin with. Now, after 40 years of medicine, understanding what those people were, why they're in the coronary care unit to begin with, and when they come into my office, now the fun is the wheels going all the way around. Now the fun is, oh, we can stop that drug. Oh, we stop that one. Oh, get them off that one. Oh, doesn't need that one. Get them off that one. Now the fun's getting them off the pills. And medicine's a lot more fun now. People get healthy in my office instead of getting them worse, or gee, Joe, you're getting worse. I don't know what to do about it. Just send it to a specialist. Now people get healthy in my practice because of what they're eating. Other questions? You guys are sharp. You guys are good. It's about time somebody told this to you. I wish someone had told me this 40 years ago. But this is real. I don't want to see you in my office with breast lumps, asthma, high blood pressure, diabetes, and if you keep eating this diet, the standard fast food diet, that's what happens to you. You're that big fat guy. That's you 10 years from now. I want to see you like that. I want you to see you lean and healthy. Yes? I'm sorry? Fish, yeah. The whole fish thing. From a strictly nutritional point of view, if you look at the different flesh foods, yes, no question, fish flesh has a lot of things going for it. It's got more omega-3, it's got less saturated fat, yada, yada, yada. That's true. And up to the last 100 years, if you had no ethical issues with the fish on the end of the line, it was a reasonable thing to do. And the party line is to recommend it. I can't even say the words any longer. We are clear-cutting the oceans. We are strip mining the oceans to the last fish. The fish are disappearing. And those that are left are filled with mercury and pesticides. How could you even want to eat them? And it sticks in my throat now. Oh, or you can have some fish. Because I know, what am I really saying? We're talking about long-line salmon lines, and all the dolphins get snagged, and the hooks, and the seabirds, and the turtles, and the sharks, and the nets, and all that. By saying those words, I'm okaying all that rape on the oceans. And the fish farms are even worse with the farmed salmon. They're full of antibiotics, and they're an ecological disaster. I can't even say the words. Or you can have some fish, because I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I can't do it to the earth or the fish or my kids. So I've stopped recommending it. Plus, you look at that piece of fish, what's really in it? What is the mercury count of that? What is the pesticide count of that? It's scary stuff, man. What we're dumping into the oceans. We're treating the oceans like a toilet. And then we're fouling the nest. And it's scary to look at a piece of halibut and wonder where it's been. Or So I'm not a big fish fan. There's no good flesh. I guess grass-fed beef is the nutritionally best and the least ecologically damaging, but the environmentalists have their things about that too, which we can get into. There's no good flesh food, but that's probably most. You can kill one cow and feed 40 people, as opposed to having to kill 500 chickens or 1,000 fish or whatever. There's fewer deaths involved, I guess, and less ecological damage. So I guess grass-fed beef's the best. A couple times a week and be done with it. Yes. What kind? I'm sorry.
If I have like a weak kidney,
Uh-huh.
I think that Chinese herbs are good, or do cheeses. I don't know what else.
We would have to talk about what a weak kidney really is. I don't know if you want to get into that in front of everybody here, but yeah. So talk to me later. We can do a little phone consultation on that if you'd like. Okay. Yes.
You talked about stir fries. So what would be a good, I don't want to say out of the bottle, but
Yeah, right, yeah.
with walnut oil.
Yeah, right, sure, fair enough. So how do you do a stir fry without oil? Any liquid will do. All right. Cut up an onion, throw it in there, and as you heat it up, the onion sweats, and you wind up with a pool of liquid there. That works just great for a stir fry. Vegetable soup, vegetable broth works just fine. You can make vegetable broth yourself if you have a pot. All the parts of the vegetables you're not using, the tops of the carrots and the tops of the celeries and the bottom of the beetroot, throw it in the pot and boil it overnight, and you got vegetable broth the next morning. And a couple tablespoons of that works great to stir fry veggies. And anything wet will work. And so, but as I said, cut up an onion, throw it in there. It's called sweating an onion, and it just turns into a bunch of liquid. Throw a little garlic in there as well. Anything's better than oil. And you'll see, I didn't believe, I used to love oil, I used to love olive oil. So now that I've stopped eating it, and when I go out to a restaurant, it's even when we tell them light on the oil, it's so obvious there's oil on my food, and it's become really unappetizing. And it's an interesting phenomenon. You might experience it too. It's oil on your food. Other questions? I've been amazed at medical conditions that have responded to a healthy diet, but there's hope. What you got going on? Run. It's the tincture of time is a potent medicine. The people come up to our place, oh, I want to do a 20-day fast and lose a bunch of weight and be healthy. Listen, it's not 20 days on water that makes you healthy. It's what you eat after the fast. It's the food stream day after day, month after month, year after year, pouring through your tissues. That's what creates a lean, healthy body, one that's all fat and clogged up and on medications. Health comes from healthy living. It's not acai berries, it's not Himalayan sea salt, it's not alkaline water, it's not, pick the supplement du jour. It's the food stream day after day. It's your river of life that you're flowing through your body and your life. That's what creates health or disease. So live healthy, eat healthy, and you'll be healthy. How simple as that? Yes?
If I were to go and live in the facility for a while, what would be the payment like?
The founder, good question, and a very brave one. The director of the clinic is Dr. Alan Goldhammer, and he's a true healer, and he is not out to gouge money. He just wants to really make these great services available. And so at our place, it's on a luxury place, very nice. You bring your mother there. $139 a night. You can't stay at the Holiday Inn for that. And there are 3 meals, medical supervision, lectures, food demos. It's healthy eating school there, or fasting supervision. So it's very affordable. It's not. He's not out to gouge. It's not one of these $10,000 a week spas or nothing like that. We're serious about getting people healthy. This is nutritional medicine done right, and we do it right, and people get healthy. It's called True North Health Center up at Santa Rosa. You can Google it. Questions? Anything you always wanted to ask the doctor but was afraid to ask? Now's your chance. Yeah, I understand it here. Yes? Sure. Right. How old? This is your husband?
No, my boyfriend.
Your boyfriend, okay. I'm sorry, I thought you said I have a son. Oh, your boyfriend, yeah. Yeah, a couple of things. As I said, I'll give you a little tips and all this stuff, but you can say, you won't do this, you won't do that. Fair enough. But again, what I found the best thing to do is do it yourself. Just start doing it yourself. Hi, hon, salad in the fridge, some soup on the counter, help yourself. I gotta say. And you start doing it. And watch as the days go by. You just say, hey, that soup smells pretty good there. Mind if I have a little bit of that? And pretty soon, you start some training on the health train there. That's what happens. So again, you want to do it yourself. But in deference to what you said, usually, even guys, there's a couple vegetables. They like mashed potatoes usually. They like corn on the cob. They like green peas in a pod, sweet peas, etc. Start with that. And anything sweet, raw carrots. And carrot sticks are nice to dip in hummus. Use them as celery sticks. Use them as dip with. And with a little kid, you got it covered up with sauces and things like that. Well, you kind of got it with your big little kid there. So do the celery sticks and the carrot sticks to mop up the hummus, and ask him, what when you were little, any vegetables you did like? Do you like green pepper sticks? You like, find out what he does like, and start building on that. And throw it in the soups, throw it in the salads, and be creative. You'll be surprised that he might actually eat a piece of spinach and like it, or a piece of artichoke. Okay? It's, yes?
Are you saying that we should eliminate meat all completely?
Oh, I think so.
Do you agree that we should eat some kind of flesh?
Right. That's a very, very important question. The human body has no nutritional requirement for animal flesh. There's no nutrient we require that we cannot make from plant-based foods ourselves. And people who are raised as vegans since birth, they don't have meat cravings, they grow up big and strong, and it's not an issue. The human body works quite fine without it. And seeing the cost to the planet and all that stuff, yes, I think everybody should be vegans, but I will not insist on that. It ain't going to happen. So I'm saying then get it down to a reasonable manageable, get it down to once or twice a week, is all I'm saying. Start with that. And what happens, it turns out, people do that, and you talk to them 6 months later, I'm eating it 3 times a week. You talk to them 6 months later, gee, I think we get down about maybe once a week, we have it maybe. You talk to them 6 months later, gee, I think we had it twice last month. And you talk to them 6 months later, gee, I think we had it once a month maybe. And it just kind of fades out as your enzymes gear up to make your own carnitine and creatine. You find you wind up eating the stuff less and less, but let your body determine that. And if everybody got their meat eating down a piece of pot roast on Sunday, I'll take that. Vegan schmegan. The world would heal with that. I'm not going to insist on everybody must be vegan. But man, get it. That is too expensive to keep doing 3 times a day flesh for this whole country. We can't do that. Good questions.
When was it okay to?
I'm sorry?
When was it okay to start eating dairy?
When was it okay to start eating dairy? That's a profound question. And I imagine in ancient olden days when there was a young mother that was killed in a chariot accident and she had a little baby of 3 months old. If there was no other woman who could wet nurse the baby, then they found the nearest cow or goat and they milked it and gave it to the baby as a replacement for mother's milk. And fair enough, it's an emergency fuel. That's hard to argue with that. But when the child was 2, stop the milk. It's a juvenile food. To keep drinking the milk of another animal species into adulthood is bizarre. No other animal does that. And but it came from emergency fuel for newborns without mothers. I think that's where it came from. And well, let me just go into this a little bit. I mean, behind your question, the whole issue of lactose intolerance. And people, I've got this disease, I'm lactose intolerant, and I've got to have lactate so I can eat my cheese. People, lactose intolerance is not a disease. That's the way it's supposed to be. The enzyme lactase, well, let's take it all the way back here. Okay. Babies nurse on their mother's breast. Why? Has anyone ever tasted breast milk? I have. It's sweet. It is like maple syrup. It is so sweet because there's lactose sugar in the milk. That's what makes the baby want to come back and nurse them more. Without sweet lactose sugar in breast milk, we would all starve to death on our mother's breast because we wouldn't nurse. So breast milk is sweet. And so it's fine to nurse those couple of years. But lactose is a double sugar, it's a disaccharide. And we have to have an enzyme, lactase, to split that so we can digest it. If you don't have the enzyme, then we can't split the lactose, and it gives you diarrhea and cramps. It's a nasty thing. Well, guess what? Little babies have lactase because they're nursed on mother's milk, but it's programmed by age 2 or 3, the stomach, the intestines stop producing lactase because we're supposed to be weaned. We're not supposed to be drinking mother's milk anymore, and lactase is a juvenile enzyme that's supposed to disappear. Adults are not supposed to have lactase. No one's supposed to be able to consume cow's milk. But for the folks of Northern European extraction, there was a mutation a couple million years ago, and the lactase enzyme persisted to adulthood. So people in Europe have been able to continue consuming milk as adults. It's a genetic mutation. And period, there's nothing natural about it. It's a mutation. We are not supposed to be drinking milk as adults. And now the folks of Asian extraction, African American extraction, were lactase deficient. They're the normal ones. That's what it's supposed to be. But those are the folks that give you need to take these lactate tablets so you can eat and we're trying to force dairy on the Thai folks and the people in Myanmar who are never supposed to be eating this stuff, and they're getting cramps and diarrhea. It's a bizarre thing to be doing. We are not supposed to be drinking anybody's milk, cow milk, rat milk, horse milk, giraffe milk, any milk as adults. Enough already. You're grown boys and girls, grown men and women. Shouldn't be drinking milk. Any species. It's funny how it all got, and it's all about the company. McDonald's doesn't care about you. Coca-Cola doesn't care about you. They care about what's in your wallet. They want a wallet massage off of you, and that's it, man. They care about your arteries. They don't care about your pancreas. Here's one, ladies. When a female child is born, this gets to the Diet Coke problem, but everything else. When a female child is born, that little baby has in her ovaries all 500 eggs that she is going to ovulate during her reproductive years. Her children are already in her ovaries, in that baby's womb, in that baby's abdomen. So when the mom is pregnant, every meal she eats is not only turning genes on and off in her cells, but she's doing it to her daughter's cells and her granddaughters or grandson's cells, who are still the eggs in that little baby's ovaries. Every meal affects your grandchildren when you're pregnant. Well, now everyone's got to have a slim, dynamite, hot body, right? And so little girls, now when they're 10, 11 years old and they're watching American Idol and Kelly Clarkson, oh, I want to look like her, and the Diet Coke, down they go, man, from age 10. And 3-4 times a day, they're sloshing aspartame and xylulose and all these artificial saccharides, all these artificial sweeteners, wash them through her ovaries and her ovums, day after day, year after year. By the time she gets pregnant, she's washed 20 years of aspartame through her ovums, through her eggs. Now, she gets pregnant. What's the chances of that child having a congenital heart defect, congenital cleft palate, developing childhood leukemia? Who knows? But it's a bizarre experiment to do. It's grotesque. Over this, I want to be thin. Then stop eating cow's milk. Stop eating cheese. Stop eating baby calf growth fluid. Stop eating sugar in the form of candies and cakes and ice cream, all that. Stop eating, clean up your diet. Diet Coach Mike, or you don't need that stuff. As I said, put some fruit juice in a bottle, some cold fizzy water, in a glass with some cold fizzy water, make your own fizzy drinks. But don't see diet colas as your friend, and they might be doing harm to your children or your children's children with every swallow that you're taking. What we're learning about genetics really puts an air of responsibility to everything we do, because your thoughts affect your everything, as well as your every meal.
So we haven't even seen the worst of what can happen to the population yet.
What's going to, I'm sorry?
We haven't really seen what's going to happen to the population in the future. It's still experiments.
This is a huge, huge experiment, and we are swirling the pot in ways that we have no idea what we are doing. We unleash the GMO genie. We are unleashing we're GMOing the cows here. No, it's fasten your seatbelt time. We're doing a very bizarre experiment that we have no right to be doing, that have never been done in history before. I've got my niece, a little older than you guys are, but I've got little nephews and nieces here, and I have concerns about when they're my age, what kind of world they're going to be in. So that's why I'm talking to you guys, because what you decide to eat and buy and wear and do is going to influence everything, including your kids and the world they got. So we all got to work together. So somebody had to come from the future and tell you this. So what you eat and what you buy, what you do, everything makes a big difference more and more these days. We're feeling less and less powerful. Truth is, we each have more and more power than we ever had. Makes huge differences when you pull out that wallet, pull out that credit card. Boy, you set things in motion. Be sure you know what you're setting in motion.